And a much publicized meeting between President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the U.S. President Joe Biden, scheduled to hold, while in the U.S. did not hold. Tinubu departed New York City on Thursday evening after attending a successful United Nations General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York. Both leaders were billed to meet at the behest of President Biden while in the U.S., but the meeting failed to hold without an explanation. The presidential spokesman, Ajuri Ngelale, in a statement last month, said Tinubu had accepted an invitation to meet with the U.S. president on the sidelines of the UNGA. Ajuri announced that the letter was delivered by U.S. Presidential Envoy and Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Molly Fee. No reason was ever given for the cancellation of the meeting. Well, let's discuss these demands further and the possibility of African leaders getting what they want with a career foreign service diplomat who served in Brazil, France, Israel, and the United States. He is Ambassador Gregory Okon. Very warm welcome to Newsnight, Ambassador. Tell us, UNGA is still ongoing, and quite a lot of commentators have been saying that Nigeria is had a very great field day with Mr. President's maiden appearance at the 78th UNGA. How would you sum it up as a diplomat who's covered several countries?
Thank you very much for the invitation, Christian. I would sum it up like this. Well, we created a momentum in the United Nations.
Okay.
And but I'd like to point out that the United Nations is only a multilateral institution. And in the past, we have often mistaken ends to means, mistaken means to ends. The United Nations is a means to an end. We cannot treat it as an end itself. The outing at UNGA is very impressive, very encouraging. Like I said, has created a momentum, a favorable momentum for Nigeria to capitalize on.
Are there specifics that you really want to point to? Because both Nigeria's president, even some of the African presidents like Kagame of Rwanda, Ado of Ghana, spoke on the issue mitigating climate change, and that look, this is in the hands of the Africans. And Ado is talking about reparations for the years of slavery and the wealth of the West and the U.S.
Absolutely. All those points are well made. But what I want to emphasize on is that Africa needs to look more inward. We can use multilateral institutions, but we have to come back home too, to realize that the more impact, the more impact we make at home is how the world will take us seriously outside. Look at the African Continental Trade Agreement, NAFTA. A country like Nigeria is not even among the 8 members that are pioneering the policy-making mechanism, the positioning initiative. Now, Nigeria, with all its population, with all its biggest economy in Africa, is not even included in the BRICS. And there's nothing showing that African countries are uniting behind Nigeria or any other country to become a member of the BRICS. Nigeria was only an observer in the G20 in India, and likely to be so in the coming one in Rio. South Africa is a member of the BRICS, but how does it generate the momentum?
Then what makes Nigeria a giant of Africa?
What makes Nigeria a giant of Africa if Nigeria is not being reckoned with in this kind of African institutions, African initiatives? That is why I think that, yes, we have made a very significant outing in the UN as a multilateral organization, but we should not treat the UN as the end. It is a means. Otherwise, we'll be sacrificing tactics for strategy. The strategy is to attract investment into Africa And I don't want to be so specific on Nigeria alone, but Africa is well positioned as it is now, as the only region in the world to reap benefits of global capitalism. It is the only region in the world that is open to venture capital, entrepreneurship, trade promotion, direct foreign investment. It has grown 4% since 2004. Africa has experienced a growth rate of 4%, at par with Latin America. Africa, the informal sector in this continent is the biggest in the world. The ILO recently was surprised to find out that 55% of sub-Saharan Africa's GDP comes from the informal sector. 80% of the labor force is in the formal sector. The projection is that by 2030, Africa will be 1.4 billion people. With all the vibrancy of the youth, with all the entrepreneurial initiatives of the workforce. Therefore, we need to come back home. Yes, we've finished with the UN. Let us come back home and get our acts together.
And in getting the acts together, the president, Ahmed Tinubu at UNGA, said to the world, he said, let me quote and see, he talked about the unfair treatment and foreign exploitation that has bedeviled Africa and stunted Africa's progress, thereby calling on the world powers not to keep changing Africa's shackles. That's what some other, literary historian or commentators would want to call a second slavery, second colonialism, furthering neo-colonialism in Africa by not allowing it to breathe?
Christian, if there's any lesson in history, international relations that nations must learn, is that logic is not a constant in the behavior of nations. What most of African leaders are expecting is that this, the developed world, the American and the European worlds are going to behave logically, are going to, the A is equal to B, B is equal to C. It's not like that. Logic is not a constant in their behavior. Yes, we remonstrate against slavery. Even the present rule-based Bretton Woods financial institutions that seems to establish and perpetuate the hegemony of the North against the global South and all that. We cannot just wait for them. We have to do something ourselves. We have to be able to manipulate them, not by declarations, not by all the acts of remonstration, which we should do anyway, but we must go beyond that. As I said earlier, the action is within Africa. It is. I want to tell you something, Christian. The present generation of Africans are facing a completely different problem from the previous generation. Our problems are more transnational than international. Our problems are more transnational.
Is that what we are seeing in Guinea, Mali,
absolutely,
Niger?
Absolutely. We need more of Africanness, Africanism, Pan-Africanism.
That's going back to the years of Nkrumah.
Yeah, absolutely. We need that before we can generate that kind of impact. It is this that will give us the respectability we need with these people. These people cannot be persuaded by logic, like I said. Their behaviors are not logical. They are moved by what they call real politics, right from the time of Bismarck in Germany, right, and all that. We must, look, we are dissatisfied with the Bretton Woods financial institution.
Yeah, because all they think about is opening a poverty register and give out doles, Is that a solution to Africa's problems, Nigeria's problems?
Absolutely not. But I want to call your attention to the history of the formation of this institution and the leaders and the thinking at the time. The paradigm at that time, it was domination. All right? There is no way they would have been thinking of a continent at that time. So what we have to do now is to adopt strategies that also align us with the emerging international system. Christian, the macroeconomic mega trends that are shaping the world today include globalization, demography, urbanization, internet proliferation. All right? And like I said, these challenges pose a lot of, embedded in these in this phenomena are two very great forces, inexorable, irreversible forces of populism and multiculturalism. They are separate. One does not know the existence of the other. One does not reckon with the existence of the other. But when they meet, when they interact, they form a conundrum.
But unfortunately, in West Africa, ECOWAS has not been able to achieve that conundrum that you're talking about.
That is why we must come back home. And okay, that is why I want to advocate that Nigeria begins to exert and project power. I think Nigeria should have a strategic arena, a grand area doctrine, and we should be moved by power concepts, not this humanitarian thing of African brother. We must create a strategic arena either in ECOWAS or beyond, where Nigeria will be respected. Africa has to react to Nigeria, not Nigeria reacting to Africa.
Thank you very much. No better place for you to drop the anchor there. His Excellency Ambassador Gregory Okon. Thanks for coming to speak with us on Newsnight.
Thank you very much.